Hey, and we're live. So, good evening. Good evening. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good evening.
What should we say between good morning and good evening?
Good day. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Good noon. Nobody says that. Good noon. Maybe we could try it though. No? No.
Is the weather like evening?
Is the weather what?
The weather is like evening?
The weather is like evening. Well, yeah, it's kind of a little on the dark side today, hey? But that's okay. As it's gonna be like this for a little while. Okay, so let's say hello to Vito, who is here. Good morning to you, and Harry, who is here. Good morning, Harry. There you are. Yeah, let's talk about yesterday. So we had said that by the time we get to about 600 BC in India, a lot has changed, right? We've had these kind of Indo-Aryans come in. They have, I see a few people without masks here. Masks on, please, unless you're actively drinking. You can't drink for 25 minutes, so just take a sip, put it on. So it's another $1. It's like $6 you owe me now. All right, making a little extra money today. Would you like a Kleenex? $1 per piece. No? Maybe you're gonna think? Okay. Think hard. Limited time offer. Just teasing. So, yeah. So we said that the Indo-Aryans kind of moved into northern India, and kind of we got this brand new kind of civilization reboot, right? Agriculture became more important. Society got more complex. We had the development of kind of a new religion based on Brahmanism. We have the use of Sanskrit as a language. We have the Varna social system kind of taking shape. And so all of these things are kind of new imports to India, but they're brought in by these Central Asians, right? We said, of course, the basis of Hinduism, and maybe we can look into Hinduism a little bit more in detail. I don't know, maybe tomorrow, we'll see. Actually, that might be a very interesting thing to do. Maybe we will do that tomorrow. But the basic kind of layer of Hinduism comes from Brahmanism, right? And so this kind of sort of base religion that came from the Rig Veda, we see the Rig Veda is kind of used and recited for a long time, and then over this kind of, well, I guess 1,000-year period, they add 3 more Vedas, and then Brahmanas gets added, another book, and Upanishads gets added as well, right? And so I don't really want to pay too much attention to the other Vedas or to the Brahmanas, but I do want to pay some attention to, or I did want to pay some attention to Upanishads, right? Because this is this is an interesting break, okay? Because what's happening here, and it happens with the Buddha as well, what happens here is that people start to look at the world differently, okay? And why it starts to happen in this period, I'm not sure, right? Because our narrator in the video, Michael Wood, he pointed out that, there are philosophers in ancient Greece, there are prophets in, what's now Palestine, there are people in India, and they're all kind of starting to look at the world differently, right? So we said that when we talked about religion in the past and when we talked about myth, we said that it was kind of a way of people understanding the universe, right? So, if we look at the rain that is now falling outside, we understand how that works, right? Especially if you've taken Carolyn's physical geography class, you'll understand, evaporation and saturation and condensation, and you kind of understand the cycle of water, right? As it evaporates and then condenses and falls again. We get that. But ancient people didn't. And so in order to understand it, they often personified it, right? They took the rain and the storm and they made it a person, right? They made it a god. Right? And in some cases, they made it Indra, right? Who's the Indo-Aryan god of the rain and the storm. Sometimes they made it, I think it's Huitzilopochtli, who is the god of rain for the Aztecs. Sometimes they made him Thor, right? In Norse mythology, Thor is the god of thunder, right? So people personified what they couldn't explain, right? They looked to the gods for knowledge, right? They looked up there to kind of understand the world. But here in Upanishads, we have a totally different situation, right? Here, people aren't looking for knowledge up there. They're looking for it in here, right? They're thinking if you think and meditate and try to align yourself with the universe, you can figure out the nature of the universe. You can free your Atman, your soul, from this cycle of transmigration, right? Which again is very, very different, right? Usually people are praying to the gods for things, right? Oh God, please grant me a great harvest. Oh God, please let my kid be super smart, right? Oh God, please let me have a Ferrari. You know, we and people in the past prayed to gods for those things, right? And they look to holy people to explain the world around them. But here, these guys writing the Upanishads are saying, we're not looking up there for knowledge. We're looking in here and out here, right? That's how we're going to understand the world. And we'll see that when we get to the Greek philosophers, when we get to Socrates and Aristotle and Plato. Those guys are doing kind of the same thing, right? They're trying to figure out the world, but their idea is that, you know, gods don't make the universe operate. The universe operates by natural law, right? And if you pay close attention and you observe, you can figure out how it works. You can figure out the rules of the universe. And that's kind of the basis of science, right? Because that's what science does. Science observes the world around us, and if we observe carefully enough, we can figure out how it works, right? And so the ancient Greeks are doing that, but here in India, they're doing something very similar, right? They're saying you can figure out how the universe works, and you can free yourself from it, right? You can take control of things yourself, and you can liberate your own soul from this cycle of reincarnation, right? Which is, again, amazing, right? Totally different way of thinking than most other places in the world, right? So yeah, if you know, we're caught in this cycle of transmigration, of reincarnation, and then if we can align our souls, I'm just going to jump here, if we can kind of understand that Atman is an expression of Brahman or is one with Brahman, then we can be liberated, right? Then, just like on the SkyTrain, instead of looking out the window, we're looking at the inside, right? We see that things aren't constantly changing, things are actually always the same, right? The universe is always the same, your soul is always the same, and so the exterior stuff is that's just stuff going by in the window, right? That's not real. At least I think that's what these guys were talking about. And so that kind of brings us to the Buddha, right? One of the most influential Indian thinkers. And so what did we say yesterday that the problem he was trying to solve? What's that? Yeah, right? The idea of, because what does attachment cause? Yeah, and then as a result, when they don't get it, they will suffer, right? So yeah, your attachment to your attachment to things that you can't have or over things that you have no control over, those things make you miserable, right? You want what you can't have. You fear losing what you already have. You want things to change that you have no ability to change. And so you're miserable, right? Or not you're miserable, but people suffer because of that. And the Buddha says that's because you are attached, right? You are attached to the thing. You are attached to an outcome. You are attached to a situation. You're attached to the idea that you want it to be sunny and in fact it's raining outside, right? And so Buddha says you want to free yourself from suffering, free yourself from the attachment, free yourself from wanting things to be different than they actually are, okay? And this is his big enlightenment, right? This is his big realization when he's under the Bodhi tree there meditating. He comes to understand that this is the nature of existence. You can liberate yourself from suffering not by praying to a god or asking or doing a sacrifice. You can liberate yourself, right, by ridding yourself of attachment, by not wanting, right? By not wanting things. How's this philosophy atheistic? What is atheistic? It's what? You don't live in. Oh, you don't believe in? Yeah, right. There's no real gods in this religious system, right? There's only the universe and how it operates, and there's you, right? And your relationship to the universe and to other people, right? To people around you. It's a humanistic faith more than it is a theologic faith, right? It's not about gods, it's about people. And what does he say? What are his dying words?
All the created things will pass,
Strive on and persevere? Is that what he said?
I think like all created things will pass.
Yeah.
Strive on and persevere.
Yeah. He did say that, right? So he was dying there and his followers were like, "No, you can't die yet." And he's like, "What more do you want from me?" Right? You have the teachings. I'm done. All created things will pass. Strive on. Anyway, basically is what he said. I forgot. There's one more word, but I can't remember what it was. Yeah, strive on, right? Our lives are limited, but continue anyway, right? So, yeah, this is the guy here, Siddhartha Gautama to start out with, but later known as the Buddha, the enlightened one. Again, he's alive kind of in the 400s BC, which again is a very interesting time for humanity since we have lots of philosophical thinkers thinking these really new, interesting thoughts. This is just kind of a summary of his enlightenment, right? This is what he discovers. And yeah, he says the way to liberation, the way to freeing yourself from suffering is to follow the Eightfold Path. And again, I've kind of put it in here, but I don't think it's super important, except for maybe the last one, right? Which is to practice meditation, right? So the Buddha says this is an important thing to free yourself from suffering. And we kind of tried it yesterday, and we kind of ran out of time, and it was a little bit awkward. And I'd kind of like to try it again today, if you wouldn't mind. Do you think you can do 5 minutes? Do you think you can do 5 minutes of meditation? I don't know. I opened my eyes yesterday and I saw some people were on their phones already, and so I'm concerned that maybe we can't go even 5 minutes without our phones. But hopefully we can prove ourselves wrong. Let's try it one more time, okay? So here's what we'll do. Give me a second here. So for online people,
Yesterday after the breath meditation,
yeah,
I felt sleepy.
you felt sleepy. That's kind of okay. So for online people, I've put a link to a meditation into the live chat there, so you can see it. And so here's what we're gonna do. So laptops closed, phones away. Get yourself nice and comfortable. Again, you don't want to be sitting in an awkward position like that, because you don't want to like fall out of your chair or anything. Get a nice, comfortable, stable position, right? And again, you're going to focus just on your breathing, okay? Now, yesterday when we tried this, did you find that like thoughts were coming in? You found yourself thinking about things? You were able to just breathe the whole time?
It's too fast.
What's that?
Too fast.
Too hard?
Yeah.
Well, what was?
No. I mean, too fast.
You should do longer.
Yeah.
We should do longer?
Like 5 minutes is all.
Like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
30 minutes? Okay. I'm actually a little insulted that you think I'm going to go along with that. I'm fairly certain nobody in this room can do more than 5 minutes of actual meditation, unless you've actually been doing it for a while on your own before. Because it is very difficult to keep your mind from thinking things. It really wants to think things, and it wants you to think them too, right? So we're going to try one more time, just for a few minutes. So online people, there's a link right here in the live chat. And so let's just take 5 minutes and see if we can do it, okay? So I'll see you in just a minute. That seemed really short. How did it go for you guys?
Yeah, her voice was better than.
That was better than yesterday?
It was calm.
Okay. Okay, a more calming voice.
Yeah.
All right. How did it go?
With more.
You need more? Yeah. It's that seemed really short. I couldn't stop thinking about things. Like things kept coming in and I was yeah. It's what?
Just focusing on your breathing.
It's really
Like,
hard.
just try your breathing.
Yeah. Which is interesting for two reasons, right? It's interesting because number one, it makes you wonder, first of all, like what's going on in our heads all day long, right? Because it's so hard to just sit and like pay attention to what's around you, right? Because yeah, your brain is getting hijacked, right? Like there's all these thoughts coming in and you know, you get caught, right? You get caught thinking them and you're like, oh no, I don't want to think about that. I want to do my breathing, right? But then the next thing you know, there's something else. And so it's interesting because one, you know, how actually difficult it is just to focus on just one thing, on doing one thing. But also, you know, we also often think that we are our brain, right? And our brain is us. But I ask you, if you're focusing on your breathing, right? If you're trying to breathe in and out, and then this thought comes at you, who's thinking that thought? Where's that thought coming from? It's not really coming from you because you're busy, right? You're trying to focus on your breathing. So whose thought is that? You didn't think it. It just kind of came out of nowhere, right? It came out of the blackness and the next thing you knew you were thinking it. So where does that come from?
I think maybe if you're thinking about someone else, I'm sure that he or she is thinking about you too.
Oh.
It's because of you, it makes sense for you to think about.
Oh, if you're thinking about someone, they're thinking about you too? Maybe.
Your brain is multitasking.
Unfortunately, that's been disproven with me romantically a number of times. People I was thinking about were in fact not thinking about me, but maybe that's just me.
But for us, we can guess how do we think?
Yeah.
Means I thinking something, and my brother said to me, "You're thinking about it." We don't know because of your twins or
Maybe.
something else.
We also know each other very well, right? Yeah. So that helps. I can often tell you what my partner's thinking. Not all the time. Sometimes I can tell you. Yeah, it is interesting how difficult it is to be in. And what the Buddhists are trying to do when they're meditating is they are trying to be mindful, right? You're trying to just exist as everything is without thinking about other things or judging everything or worrying about things. You're just trying to be exactly where you are. And so the idea is if that you meditate enough, eventually you can meditate while you're just living your life, right? You can actually just walk around and do things in a state of just accepting how things are without thinking and judging and worrying and all of that attachment stuff, right? That's the idea, is what you're trying to do here. You're trying to train your mind to the point where your mind can do it all the time, right? No matter what you're doing, if you're walking down the street, if you're getting groceries, you know, if you're eating, whatever you're doing, you're able to be fully present and mindful for it, and you're not thinking and worrying and judging. But again, it's pretty tough to do, even for, I don't know how it went for you. Even for a few minutes, it was difficult, right? And so the Buddha here is suggesting that if you get good enough, eventually you can do it all the time, right? You can exist in that state and you can still talk to people and sort of do your life, but you can be in that kind of mindful state. But again, for most of us, it's difficult, right? Because thoughts keep showing up from somewhere.
And if I'm not mistaken, some of the Buddhists, when they like got meditation, some of them get like professional power, and
Professional power?
in that they can do everything. They like broke the stones
Oh,
and something like this.
yeah. There's some there's some Buddhist monks that are of the Shaolin variety, and they're in part part of their meditation is kind of fused with martial arts, right? And so, yeah, they're incredible. Yeah, so their mindfulness and their ability to control their mind is kind of expressed through the martial arts that they do. And so, but yeah, they're incredible. They're almost superhuman, right?
Another thing, I don't know if that's in Buddhist region, religious or not, but it's a celebration from another religion that the man cuts their mouth with a pin,
Uh-huh.
something else that's like knife,
Uh-huh.
and when they put it back from their pain, they don't have any pains on their face or on their body. I think they will show you, they are showing their colors. It's a celebration that they do it.
Okay, that I don't know about. Maybe.
It's from Chinese fiction.
Yeah,
It's just Chinese fiction. Or do you see it from Chinese fiction?
It's like a traditional concept,
Yeah.
like they use a needle.
And you stick it in your.
There's like what's the called?
Is it
Archery or something?
like acupuncture?
Yeah, acupuncture.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So but that's different, right? The acupuncture is a healing technique. I've had it done. It's pretty cool. Okay, so let's see what's next here. What have I got for you? Oh yeah, okay. So we've covered that, right? And so after Buddha dies here in about 480 BCE, so the Buddha will die. He'll say his famous last words, which we can almost remember, and his kind of philosophy started to spread, right? And so his followers kind of spread out. They started their own monasteries, and those monasteries were supported by others in the community, right? Because others in the community still believed in karma, right? And because the monks were going out and doing good things, right? The monks were accumulating a lot of karma, right? A lot of good points, if you will. Helping the monastery was also good karma for you, right? If you're helping people who go out there and help people, that's good for you, right? So people started to support these Buddhist monasteries because of karma, right? Because the monks would do good things, and so if you supported the monks, you were kind of helping them to do good things as well, right? And so, these Buddhist monasteries start to kind of spread around and start to and are supported by the community for that reason. So, who cares? Well, we care because, of course, Buddhism becomes kind of a major world religion with, I'm pretty sure, millions and millions. Is it millions or billions? There might actually be 1 billion Buddhists in the world, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, it's a major world religion, but it's also going to have an effect on the history of India and the history of China as well, right? Because Buddhism is going to kind of split into two different variants, right? Kind of one that's a branch from the original Buddha, and another one that kind of develops and is more common in like China, Southeast Asia kind of area. But we'll deal with those shortly. First, I want to talk about a couple of Indian emperors. This guy here, Chandragupta Maurya, and his grandson, I believe his grandson, Ashoka. Because just like the Buddha, just like Buddha was doing something different than everybody else, Ashoka did something different than everyone else as well, okay? And so I want us to kind of take a few minutes to learn about Chandragupta and Ashoka and kind of what's going on with their empires, okay? So I'll give you some time here to read. It's just 3 pages, but I'll put some time on the clock, and then, as usual, we will talk about these when we're done, okay? There we go. Page 86. Say again? Yeah. I don't know. That's just the number that came to me. Not random, but it's just, that's the number that popped into my head.
13 minutes?
13.
They usually give us 15 minutes. And sometimes it's not enough.
Well, we'll check at the end of 13 and see how we're doing, okay? Although, of course, at the end, are you going to say 2 more minutes?
10 more minutes.
What's that? 13.
30 is good number.
12. 11. I'm just about done marking it. I'm kind of, it's been slow. It's been slow.
I want to remember.
Why might the Mauryan Empire have declined? Sorry, I'll move this here. according to Dharma, you live it according to the way things should be. Kind of like ideally. Okay, you want to take a quick break? And when we come back, but you haven't finished yet? I'll let you finish when you get back. All right. Let's take a break, and then I'll give you a couple minutes when we get back, and then we'll talk about Ashoka and Chandragupta. Okay. Whoops. No, we don't need another 12 minutes.
15 minutes too?
Nope. Gone.
You said you will give us a couple of minutes.
I did. I'm a couple minutes late.
Oh.
Oh. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do here, okay? So what do we know about Chandragupta Maurya?
He's the first emperor of Mauryan Empire, the largest empire, the first largest empire in India.
Yeah, so we have kind of an empire appearing here in kind of the 300s, right? So there's a bunch of these kings, 9 kings that kind of get together and they're like, okay, we're going to cooperate in kind of a team, federation kind of thing. And then Chandragupta sneaks in, overthrows the kings, and takes control of all of it, right? And sort of sets up his own empire.
Chandragupta is who invents who began a new period in Indian history.
Yeah. So he does kick off a new period in Indian history. Prior to this, we have kingdoms, right? Just various kings sprinkled throughout northern India. Sometimes they're fighting with each other. Sometimes they're in alliances with each other. Again, there's these 9 kings that decide to build an alliance. But then Chandragupta comes in, kicks them all out, takes power, and sets up an empire. There's a conflict, they say, between Chandragupta and Seleucus. And we haven't talked about this, but Seleucus is one of the generals of Alexander the Great. Okay? And so Alexander, if you know anything about him, he's from kind of northern Greece, a place called Macedonia. He comes in, he conquers Greece. What's that? He's kind of just an army general. So his father kind of conquers part of Greece. And then Alexander takes his army and conquers all of Greece. And then he kind of goes to Egypt and conquers that. And then he goes all the way across Asia and conquers all of that too. And finally he gets to India. And again, this takes like 20 years or so. Finally gets to India. He's going to conquer the Indians. And his generals and his men say, you know what, Alexander, we've had enough. We've been, at war for 20 years, conquesting, taking over places. We haven't seen our wives in 20 years. We're done. We're going home, right? So Alexander is kind of forced to stop. He dies shortly after. And after he dies, his generals kind of divide up his empire, right? So there'll be Antigonus will kind of take over Greece and the Middle East. Ptolemy will take over Egypt, right? So Egypt, I said before, eventually it will be ruled by Greeks. Ptolemy is the general that takes control of Egypt. And then Seleucus takes control of the eastern part of Alexander's empire. And that's where he bumps into Chandragupta Maurya. So Seleucus is one of Alexander the Great's generals. And so they kind of get into a bit of a conflict, but what's the outcome of that?
The contract.
Yeah, kind of, right?
For in exchange of Chandragupta give him hundreds of elephants.
Yeah.
He gives Chandragupta a daughter in marriage.
Yeah. So you're right. They kind of become friends, or at least not enemies, right? They exchange gifts, and Seleucus marries his daughter to Chandragupta, and they kind of coexist peacefully, right? So then along comes Ashoka, right? And Ashoka is the grandson of Chandragupta. Under Chandragupta and under his son Bindusara, they kind of expand their empire to the point where they've basically got pretty much all of India under their control. And then along comes Ashoka, and he, very interesting for a king or an emperor, he decides to renounce violence. He says, I'm not going to use violence to rule my empire. Wow, right? Empires are ruled with violence, right? That's how you keep everybody in line. You threaten to kill them, right? So he's doing something really different. Why does he decide to renounce violence? Because he's a follower of Buddhism, yeah.
And like he saw a lot of war and people dying. So like he feel like he should stronger his dharma and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so it seems that Ashoka is kind of he's a Buddhist already, but yeah, he's fighting all of these wars, and he's like, you know what? This is awful. And he literally says, war is a tragedy for everyone, right? And so he's like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to rule by violence. And so instead, he's going to rule by virtue, or the fancy word is Dharma, right? He's going to rule according to Dharma, right? According to virtue, according to the kind of ideal way that things should be or that people should behave. He's going to try and behave that way too, right? So what does this Dharma mean? How does Ashoka act? What things does he do?
I'm not sure, but can we say like he is like a personal practice of Buddhism?
Yeah. So he personally practices Buddhism. Yeah. What else? What else does he do? Or how does he act out his Dharma?
Lots of ethical behavior.
Right? So he's going to engage in ethical behavior. He's going to try to make decisions and treat people ethically. Okay, say that one more time.
like so basically he's a vegan.
Yes.
Vegan. So like he forbids the slaughtering certain animals or sacrifices for cooking in the royal kitchen.
Right. So certain animals may not be sacrificed, and certain animals may not be cooked in the royal kitchen. Right? He's going to be kinder to animals. What else?
The equal between the poor people and the rich people. I mean, I don't know what's the word.
Say that one more time.
The reasons are equal for poor people and rich people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so he's, in terms of justice, he's going to treat people the same, right? Whether they are rich or poor. And we haven't had a lot of time to talk about this, but one of the things that you'll find in ancient law is that rich people and poor people are not treated alike, right? Rich people who commit crimes are treated much more gently. Usually they have to pay a fine. Poor people and slaves tend to be punished or they have their hands cut off or they're killed or something like that. So the punishments are much harsher for poor people than for rich people. But Ashoka is going to treat people the same, right? What else?
He's going to like presenting himself in the role of father looking
Oh, interesting. Yeah, one of the ways that he's going to try to encourage this sort of virtuous behavior is by positioning himself as the father of the nation, right? That's very interesting. Has anyone else ever done that in history?
What?
Position themselves as kind of the father of the people, the father of the nation?
German Nazi.
Huh?
German Nazi. Hitler.
Oh, Hitler? Yeah, in a way, he was kind of. He never said he was.
He's the father, but like their education is.
Yeah, he kind of acted that way.
Brainwashing the kids. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's called socialization. We're not brainwashing kids. We're socializing them. We're educating them. anyone else? Who else has kind of acted as a father figure to their nation? Kim Jong-Un springs to mind. He acts as kind of a father figure to his nation. You'll find that a lot of dictators and a lot of dictators will present themselves as kind of the father of the nation.
Like
In our country,
Yeah.
it's like we say. Do you say like something imam or no?
Imam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We say Imam Khomeini. This is
Yep.
our.
Yeah, he's kind of a.
Yeah.
How do we describe
Yeah,
him?
he's standing in the top. In the
Yeah.
front, and
He's the leader of the
yeah, and he give advice from us.
Yeah.
worst person in the world.
Worst person? He's not my favorite. Yeah, lots of leaders present themselves as that, right?
Like Gandhi is a leader, yeah.
Uh,
He's a leader of India or no?
no, although he he did have some political power. We'll get to Gandhi later, but Gandhi was kind of a father figure as well, right? And Roman emperors often position themselves as fathers of the nation. So what I'm saying here is Ashoka's doing something, but it won't be the last time that somebody tries to put themselves in that position, right, as the father of the people. What else? What else does he do, Ashoka?
So he also proclaiming that he would replace his pleasure and hunting tools with dharma.
Right. So all of those things that he used to go out and do as a rich king, hunting animals, probably sleeping with lots of women, he's not going to do that anymore, right? He's going to, go on vacations that are virtuous, right? It's like ecotourism, right? You could go to an all-inclusive resort and, drink and party all day, or you can go on an eco tour, right? So Ashoka is going to try to be responsible in his travels. Anything else?
Oh, he promised to give gifts to Brahmins.
Oh, he's gonna. Yeah, when he traveled around, he gives gifts to Brahmin and to older people.
In the countryside.
Yeah, right. Trying to take care of people. Oh, he does something else too. He sends government officials out.
Oh, yeah.
He sends government officials out to. No. What does he say? I'm just gonna put my feet up here because this is gonna take a while. What does he do? He sends government agents out. What are these government people doing? What's their job?
Oh, they were revive the state.
They were what?
Yeah, oh, they were is it the one that they were advised by council of ministers and so
Not so much.
they divide the empire into a hierarchy of province?
Nope.
No?
No. Didn't he send people out just to see if they were how they could contribute to their happiness and to their contentment? No?
Dude,
Oh, wait.
now your answer question 5.
Well, I'm kind of asking. I'm still.
Oh, he asked his subjects to observe certain principles.
Yeah.
He knew that
Where is it here?
his empire was pluralistic mystics, so that believe that it will heal certain.
Hang on, I'm trying to find it.
Uh,
Oh yeah, nope. Yeah, he told his subjects that he was appointing officers to tour his realm and to attend to the welfare and happiness of all. Right? So he was sending people out to actually make sure that the people were happy, right? To make sure that the people were well, right? Okay, last question. Why might this empire have declined?
That's it.
Yeah.
If you like, you're going to saw the last empire, you can see that most of them empiring less than 50 years, and I think the reason of that because they should like loyalty to the rulers, and because of that, because I think they didn't away from this rule, and they can't be stay on in empire like more than 50 years.
Yeah, it's true, right? Most of these empires are kind of assembled because of the actions of one person, right? One person comes along and overthrows and rules, right? And so it kind of happens because of this specific person, right? And who they are. And people either respect them or fear them or maybe a little bit of both. And so they go along with it. But it mentions here in the text that there are a series of kind of weak kings that follow Ashoka, right? So Chandragupta and his son Bindusara and Ashoka, they all seem to be good, strong, competent rulers. But after that, they're kind of so-so, right? They're kind of not as strong, not as competent, not as respected. And so people kind of stop following them, right? They stop doing what they're told to do. And again, it's in the ancient world, it's hard to run an empire, right? Because if you think of an empire the size of India, if you want to tell if you're in the north of India and you want to tell someone in the south of India what to do, you have to actually send a messenger, right? And the messenger's got to travel probably for, I don't know, a month or so to get down there. And if he's not, killed by bandits or eaten by a tiger or something like that, if he makes it down there, then he'll tell the person a month later, right? And then the person, if they want to reply, there's another month back if he doesn't, die or get eaten by a tiger, right? So communication is really slow. It's hard to get people to do what you want when it's so difficult to tell them what to do in the first place, right? And so a lot of these ancient empires are, built on one guy, right? The strength and charisma of one guy. And if that one guy is gone, people kind of stop doing what they're told. They stop paying attention. And it's very difficult to communicate with people. It's very difficult to kind of get them to do what you want them to do. And even if you want to go in there with the army, that takes a lot of effort as well, right? So these empires can be built, but maintaining them is very, very difficult to do in the ancient world. And so, yeah, a lot of them fall apart pretty quickly because it's just not that easy, right? Big empires are just not that easy to administer in this period of history, right? Okay. Where are we now? 32. So, tomorrow I have a little bit of video to show you on this. I may have it, I'm not sure what tomorrow is. As a reminder, tomorrow is our last day of the week because Friday's a day off for you. Yes, for you. What's that?
The second sound, like
The raspberry sound? Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, so you'll get a long weekend. I will get a regular size weekend. I wish I could supersize it, but I can't. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today because I have some other stuff to get into, but there's not enough time. You can pack it up. I will see you tomorrow. And then something else. I'm just not sure yet. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you
Tomorrow.